The call came as the sun set behind the ridge. A familiar voice, hollow, mocking. Old debts must be paid. Now we are even. I said nothing at first, just listened to the weight of his breathing. The general, pardoned, released. A man I had once dragged in chains before a tribunal, a man guilty of crimes too many graves could cover. Now he was free, and my son was dead, killed in a hit-and-run by his car, driven by his hand. And he wanted me to know it. I laughed. It wasn't joy, it wasn't madness. It was the sound of a blade sharpening in the dark. The wiper isn't finished. I ended the call, went to the locker I hadn't opened in years. Steel greeted me like an old friend, cold, patient, eternal. Some men don't deserve a trial. Grief is supposed to break you. Mine calcified instead. I looked at my wife across the table that night. Her silence was louder than any confession. She stirred her wine, not meeting my eyes. I knew then. She had known. The general hadn't chosen my boy by chance. It was personal, intimate, guided, and only one person in my house had given him a map. She didn't speak when I asked how long it had been. She didn't deny when I asked if she knew who he was with that night. The slight tremor in her wrist was the only answer. Betrayal doesn't scream, it whispers, and her silence was a scream I could never unhear. I began my work the way I always had. Not loud, not reckless. Patient, surgical. Phone logs, bank records, meetings buried under the veil of charity work. My wife wasn't careless, but no one hides from me forever. Every piece fit. The dinners, the calls from untraceable numbers, the money moved through shell accounts. Her lover's shadow stretched across my life even as I raised my son to believe the world could still be just. I never confronted her, not yet. Instead, I followed the general's trail. He had new soldiers, new protection, but the same arrogance. A man born to kill without consequence never imagines his reckoning walking toward him on quiet feet. Each night I polished the weapons, not because I needed them, but because the ritual reminded me of who I once was, who I had to become again. I rehearsed silence, rehearsed patience. The storm waited. The truth arrived in a folder, hand-delivered by an old contact who owed me nothing but fear. Photos, letters, hotel receipts, my wife's handwriting, careful but unmistakable. Years of betrayal, woven through the very years I'd been hunting men like him. While I bled in deserts and forests, she shared her bed with the enemy I despised most. I placed the folder on the kitchen counter, waited. She came in late. Her keys shook as they hit the bowl by the door. She saw the folder, opened it. Her face drained of color, her mouth parted. I didn't move, didn't raise my voice. How long were you planning to keep his hands on our lives? Her lips trembled. She whispered something about love, about mistakes, about weakness. But I wasn't listening. Her words were ash. The general thought he'd won. He thought killing my son evened a score. So I let him believe it. For weeks I let his empire breathe easy. Let my wife pretend the silence was forgiveness. And then, one night, I visited him. Alone. No theatrics. No warning. He sat in his study, whiskey in hand. He looked up, expecting anyone but me. His glass slipped before I even spoke. I placed a single photo on his desk. His car, my son's body, his face behind the wheel. Evidence no pardon could erase. He reached for words. I cut them off. You wanted even, but I don't trade in balance. Only endings. I didn't touch him, didn't need to. By dawn, the world would see him as I always had, a murderer, stripped of his power, delivered to the same tribunal he once escaped. The difference this time, there would be no pardon. I left the city before the sirens rose, left my wife with her silence and her whine. She tried to call, I didn't answer. She tried to cry, I didn't listen. Some betrayals you bury with blood, others you bury with absence. I gave the general his reckoning. I gave my wife the truth she'd built her lies upon, and I gave myself freedom. Not peace, never peace, but clarity. The weapons are clean now, oiled, waiting, and so am I. Because in this world, some debts don't get settled. They only wait for men like me to collect.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Subscribe now to Cheating Stories Insight World for more amazing stories.